In the ninth chapter, we still find Israel still haven't turned from their wickedness. They're still doing the same thing. They're still, and God starts it off as you're still whoring with these other nations. You're still going to these other nations and trying to hook up with these other nations and do what these other nations have done, which is not what God has called them to do. And then they get to the point where he talks about them bringing an offering, a wine offering, but God tells them, I don't want your wine offering, because if your heart ain't into serving me, then whatever you give me is just a ceremony. It's not even from the heart. So God talks to them and tell them, I don't even want your wine offerings. I don't want your sacrifice. I don't want anything from you, because you have not turned from your wickedness. You're still doing the same thing that you were doing, and I told you not to do it before. So even in the solemn feast, what are you going to do for the solemn feast for the day of the Lord? Because your heart's not right. You're still going out here. You're still having parties, and you're getting with all these other nations that I told you not to get with. So since you want to be hard-headed, since you want to be stubborn, since you want to be stiff-necked, this is what I'm going to do for you. When you go into these other nations, guess what's going to happen to you? You're going to die. You're going to die. And these other nations is going to bury you and take that silver and gold that you had from me. So you're going to die in these other nations, and you're going to be buried. And for those of you that don't die, you come back to my house and you talk about that the man of God is mad, and that the prophet of God is hated in my house. Of all houses, he's hated in my house. And I don't understand why he's hated in my house. But I understand that you're still sinning. I understand that you're still doing the things that I told you not to do. Okay? And when I found your forefathers, it was like grapes in the desert. But you are like wild grapes. You are like wild grapes that I have found. And so this is what I'm going to do, because you're still hard-headed. For your wives, their wombs are going to be barren. They're not going to produce any children. And for those that already are pregnant, those that are about to have children, guess what? I'm going to take your children away. I'm going to take your children away. So when they're born, I'm going to take them away. So Israel is still not getting it, and that's how God is with our lives. Sometimes when we turn from Him after we know what is right, and when we look at Israel, we're not looking at. And I know He talked about Ephraim, but if you remember, Ephraim is one of the sons of Jacob, or Israel, whose name is changed to Israel. When you look at this, and when you see that, when you do what you know that God told you to do. And when you look at this, God isn't talking to the other nations. God is talking to His people, His chosen people. We are His chosen people. He chose us. And when we turn from God and do what we want to do, then God starts to punish. And God is long-suffering, yes, but at the point of time, He gets fed up. And then He tells them, for those of you that are having kids, I'm gonna take them away from you. I'm not pleased with you. So you're like unfit parents to me. You can't even raise your kids, because when I look at you and I look at how you allow your kids to just run wild, you're unfit parents to me. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm taking your kids, and for all that wickedness that you're doing, I'm tired of you being in the land that I promised to your forefathers. So what I'm gonna do? I'm going to kick you out of that land. I'm going to take that land. So all you're going to do is wander around like a person without a home, because you're getting out of my land because you're not doing what I told you to do. So we find in Hosea that in this 9th chapter, Israel is still sinning. Israel is still turning away from God. Israel is still doing things in a ceremony, not pleasing God, not from the heart, but they're still doing things to hope that God would appreciate what they're doing, but they're not. But He's not. So remember in Hosea, when you're still, and in this 9th chapter, if you keep on doing what God told you not to do, you're going to have problems down the road. And the one that you need to turn to is going to be the one, because he even told Israel, he said, then I'm going to walk away from you. I'm going to walk away from you. And that's a sad thing when God walks away from us. So take a note out of Hosanna, out of the page of Hosanna. Take a note from it. One thing I was always taught, the best experience are other people's experience. Learn from them so you don't have to go through the same thing. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.